On behalf of the Board of Directors, I'd like to present the $15,000 tax-free cash prize and Herb Block Award to Matt Wuerker.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to the Herb Block Foundation, to the judges, and to Frank Swoboda. Thank you to the Library of Congress, and thank you all for coming tonight. I have to say I'm a little worried. Ever since I got this phone call from Frank back on Valentine's Day, I've been really concerned that I'm having a really grand delusion. You know the old Thurber story about Walter Mitty? And I'm sitting there sort of, and then the esteemed cartoonist comes to the Library of Congress and is in the Great Hall and is introduced by the Librarian of Congress for the drawings that he does in the new hot newspaper called Politico. And then a car horn honks or a duck quacks, and then I wake up and I'm sitting in my attic with my cat looking at the phone, hoping that Sharon Scott from the Washington Post is going to call with a freelance job. So I'm really concerned that I'm going to wake up, but so far the fantasy is holding, and I'm going to stick with it. As long as this holds and we don't turn into pumpkins or something, I've prepared a few remarks. Sarah Palin has been so good to cartoonists. And she even helps us with public speaking. First off, about the neckwear. Frank told me that one of Herb's favorite things was to wear really hideous ties to public events. And he promised that suggested that he might be able to dig out one of Herb's actual ties for me. And that didn't happen, so I put the word out. And I got this beauty from Paige Connor, who works at Politico, would you believe, is our art director. So in the spirit of Herb, I thought I'd wear a nice Donald Duck tie. And I also was concerned that people might blame my wife or my mom for my bad fashion sense, but I'm going to blame Paige. There are many people I'd like to thank for getting me here, some of whom were able to join us tonight. First, of course, my family, my extraordinary wife, Sarah, who's my North Star, whose sense of adventure and verve I've been trying to keep up with for 30 years now. My wonderful son, Owen, who came out from Oregon to fly out to be here tonight. One essential stroke of luck needed by anyone setting off on this very odd career path is the blessing of an indulgent family who somehow managed to not laugh too much when you choose to pursue and to stick with the life of a cartoonist. So thank you to my fabulous parents, my awesome mom, who made it tonight, and my great dad. Thank you for raising me in a loving home full of newspapers, books of Charles Addams cartoons, Mad magazines, and plenty of paper and pencils. They never doubted my choice, as my dad puts it, to live by my wits. Likewise, I'm very grateful to Sarah's parents, my wonderful in-laws, Glenn and Nancy Stevens, who also came out from the West Coast for tonight. They never seemed to mind having an ink-stained wretch for a son-in-law. Along the way, I've also been blessed to know so many fine cartoonists who've inspired me. I was lucky enough to meet Herb Block. In fact, when I was 11 years old, a good friend gave me a copy of Herb Block's gallery as a birthday present. I clearly remember opening it, standing there in my little PJs with the little feet attached, and carefully studying how you can add a 5 o'clock shadow to everything from Richard Nixon's face to an ICBM, and they'll look really malevolent. That Herb Block book introduced me to the very concept of the political cartoonist. The concept was further solidified in my mind in high school when I was fortunate enough to get to know the legendary LA Times cartoonist Paul Conrad, whose early encouragement really set me on my crosshatched path. That eventually led to 25 years of mostly freelance cartooning, which was very rewarding and ultimately all good preparation for the big break that came along just 3 years ago, when I was lucky enough to find myself on board for the launch of the good ship Politico. For that, I have Marty Tolchin to thank, who I hope is here tonight. Marty's excellent, superb taste in cartooning led him to pull me out of the freelance life and on board as the staff cartoonist and illustrator, and ever since, it's been one truly remarkable cruise. It was more ridiculous good fortune to find myself on board with forward-thinking captains like John Harris and Jim Vandehei, and unwavering admirals like Robert Albritton and Fred Ryan, who've been so supportive and generous. It's really another cartoonist fantasy to find yourself with editors and publishers like these, who give you so much free rein, encourage innovation, and who understand the power of cartooning. I'd also like to thank all my workmates at Politico whose daily hard work keep us afloat, particularly my editors Bill Nichols and Erica Pontarelli-Compart, and I'm especially thankful to Chris Guerreri, who helped out with the amazing programming for the Flash games that I hope you'll be able to see upstairs later. One other group of friends I'd like to acknowledge are my fellow ink-stained wretches, especially the DC gang. Since moving here 10 years ago, it's been great to get to know and to get daily inspiration from the Washington tribe of cartoonists. You really have to raise your game when you find yourself in a pool of cartoonists that includes the likes of Ann Telness, Richard Thompson, Tom Tolles, Kevin Kelleher, Nick Galifianakis, Nate Beeler, among a bunch of others. I'm lucky, very, very lucky to count them as my friends. It's the future of this greater tribe of political cartoonists that I'd like to briefly address here tonight, as long as I've got the podium and we're not yet turning into pumpkins. I'd like to indulge in a little cheerleading for the future of political cartooning. Too often in recent years, talk about editorial cartoonists sounds too much like talk of California condors or white rhinos. People see us as nearly extinct anachronisms from a previous era, about to disappear as our paper-based habitat in the media landscape is plowed under to make way for the brave digital future. I think people who believe this aren't accurately seeing the terrain ahead. The media is certainly going through a dizzying transformation, but I think it's headed in a direction that favors the political cartoonist. Not only do I think we're not going to go extinct, I think we're going to thrive. I mean, think about it. The media is now all about speaking to the shrinking attention span of the American public. Newspaper columns are shrinking down to blog posts. Blog posts are shrinking down to tweets. I'm sure any day now this miniaturization of the unit of news will shrink further down to 50 characters or less, and we'll be calling them peeps or e-burps or something. The news and policy debates that flow from the news are getting sliced and diced down into smaller and simpler morsels, taking complex topics and shrinking them down to black and white, simple-minded, and often glib political points. That's the political cartoonist mission statement. We do all of that, and we do it with funny pictures. And it's not just the size of the news that's trending toward the cartoonish, it's also the tone. My boss, John Harris, has written about the media and of the media circus and the rise of what he's dubbed the freak show. Originally, the freak show was out there on its own, the howlers and the bloviators, the late-night buffoons you'd only find way out on the edge of AM talk radio, and later also found in the rough-edged beginning of the blogosphere. But the freak show is now snuck into the big top. The old journalism of lion-taming, investigative reporting, and carefully edited, fact-checked news is getting elbowed out of the way by a new breed of ranting clowns and shrieking jesters. We're losing the sober ringmasters like Walter Cronkite. Flip on what we call the news shows on cable, and you get to watch anchors leering and chortling through the outrages of the day, trading insults and throwing mud. Combined with the decline of the traditional newspaper model of news gathering, it's pretty clear the clowns are now running the media circus. This is good news if you're a clown. I mean, conflating news with comedy shows presents real issues for our democracy. I personally still think the concept of a well-informed electorate is a good one, and keeping some civility in civil discourse is also a good idea. But briefly setting aside what's good for society, if the news media is turning into a big cartoon, this can only be good news for us cartoonists. The infantile oversimplification of politics with helpings of mockery mixed in is something cartoonists have been doing for a few hundred years. Glenn Beck's got nothing on us. The new media landscape and its shrunken attention span is one we can do well in. The web is, first of all, a visual world. It's clear that Al Gore created it just for us cartoonists. I don't want to come off as completely glib about the media's bleak trajectory right now. While I am saying that the buffoonification of the media is just great for us buffoons, I also believe that good-humored political satire is a healthy thing for the body politic. Shock value for attention's sake is not. Too many in the media seek controversy for attention's sake. In the internet age, the drive to go viral often means toying with the incendiary, which I think these days is very dangerous stuff. Poking your political adversaries in the eye all the time eventually just makes us all blind. I hope and believe as we mature into the new media age, people will get this, and true wit and incisive satire will win out. What we need is more good-natured humor that brings out our better angels and less of the purely mean-spirited stuff that just stirs up old demons. To wrap up and bring this back to Herblock, I think if he were a young cartoonist today, he'd have his scanner and a Wacom tablet, maybe even an iPad, and he'd be happily cartooning away. I also imagine he'd relish the opportunity to be on the web as well as doing animations and the like. The drawing tools and means of publication are changing, but the power and the viability of a good political cartoon remains as strong as it was in Herb's time. In fact, I'd say it's considerably stronger. I truly believe, thanks to the new media, we're on the cusp of another golden age of cartooning. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, if I've done my math right, a picture is worth at least 7 tweets. That's right? 130? Yeah. So if only Herblock were here to join in all the fun we're going to have. One of my friends and sharper critics at Politico from the get-go has been Craig Carnell, our security guard. Craig appreciates a good cartoon, and since Politico's launch, I always know if I've had a good day when I head out the door at Politico, because if Craig likes what he saw in the day's paper, the highest praise I get is, hey, Matt, nice one today. Herblock would be proud. I mean, the first time he gave me a compliment, that was the line that came out of his mouth. So as of today, Craig's praise has a whole new ring to it. Now more than ever, as I work from cartoon to cartoon, I truly hope Herblock would be proud. Thanks.